Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Coco and Dolls. I'm not Dolls.
And I'm not Coco, and I am dancing again to this music. Even though it's the same every time, I can't get enough of it.
So it's a good thing we haven't figured out how to put video of our podcasts on YouTube so that...
You'd be seeing the white man overbite right now, grooving to this music.
But it's a sexy overbite.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
So today we have episode 43 coming at you. I think this is going to be a fantastic episode because I am also 43.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And 4 and 3 are 7, which is a good number, a good lucky number.
That's right. So I've got good feelings about this episode, especially because we rehearsed it extensively, because we care.
As always.
As always.
We always rehearse, and we always do a lot of research before we get on the air.
A lot of post-production as well.
A lot of post-production.
So what we have coming to you today is our review of the Netflix movie The Laundromat, recently released, starring a bevy of names you will recognize, including Meryl Streep, Antonio Banderas, Gary Oldman, James Cromwell, David Schwimmer. Who else am I forgetting? Robert Patrick, better known as the T-1000 from Terminator 2.
I turned to you when we were watching this and was like, that's the Terminator guy. And he probably gets that all the time when he's in a movie. It's like, what's his name? I don't know. But that's the Terminator guy.
That's the T-1000.
He's like the guy who walks really funny.
Yeah.
Really determinedly.
I read that he studied insects for his role because
he was bugging everybody?
Yeah, he was bugging out. I don't know. So anyway, before we go too far off the rails and people turn this off, dolls.
Sharon Stone also.
Sharon Stone, yeah.
As palindrome Hannah.
So, my cousin is Hannah. Hi, Hannah, in Seattle, listening to us on public transportation going to work.
One of our users, one of our many, many listeners.
Who are related to us. So, Daltz, why don't you give us a review or a summary of what The Laundromat was all about? Not about the slice of life coin-operated laundry that people in an apartment building would be going to.
Although that would be interesting to see characters coming in and out.
That might be more interesting than this movie, actually. So there you have our review of
Thanks for joining us for another week. I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Dolls.
So the idea here is that this is about the Panama Papers, which, when you think about it, you're thinking, oh, what a thrilling movie subject. Something that has to do with hiding money and secret messages and obfuscation and clandestine moves in the banking world. You think, oh, thrilling, sort of like a movie that I don't want to see. And you'd be right, actually. Yeah. So it's essentially, they're trying to personalize, they being director Steven Soderbergh, who is very good, Ocean's 11, etc. Traffic. He's very good. His sort of stamp on things is little vignettes told individually. So in other words, like a little story involving a character, and then it's somehow connected to the story of another character. Traffic is like that. Mm-hmm. Ocean's 11 franchise is not necessarily like that, but there are the other movies that he's done that have been like that kind of little vignettes, and this qualifies in that same way.
Yeah, totally.
And that there's all separate little short stories intertwined and somehow connected with one another. The main story, the main character portrayed by Meryl Streep, is essentially trying to get to the bottom of why this insurance company is not paying her for the accidental death of her husband and the insurance policy that was purchased for that. And it leads to her being sort of a grandmotherly, sort of like Murder, She Wrote for insurance companies.
Like an old chick Ronan Farrow.
Right. Right. Yes.
Our Catch and Kill review coming soon to a podcast near you.
So Meryl Streep plays this woman trying to get to the bottom of it. And then she encounters these various characters, but sort of off to the side. So Jeffrey Wright's character is tangentially involved because he's the guy who's in Nevis signing things and covering and providing coverage that isn't actually there because it's a shell corporation. And so we have Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas who play partners, business and romantic partners.
Oh, were they romantic partners?
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all.
Oh, you didn't get that?
I didn't get that at all.
Oh, maybe they weren't then. I thought they were because maybe I was making assumptions because of the
accents?
shoes they were wearing.
the foofy accents and the
Well,
the well dressed.
Yeah. So partners.
I mean, they could have been.
Partners, nonetheless.
That would be a very handsome couple.
At least, yeah, I thought that they were partners. I got the sense that they were romantic partners. But anyway, let's just forget we went over that. So they're business partners.
How did you see something gay that I did not? Like, normally I'm the one who's like, yep, they're gay.
I just assumed. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad thing on my part. But so they're the guys that are in charge of this shell corporation manufacturer.
They set up shell corporations
fabricator.
for people who want to hide money.
Right. And so
they're
story,
like the narrators too.
Yeah.
They kind of narrate the whole thing.
And they break the fourth wall, so they're talking to the camera all the time, and it's I wanted to like this movie. I didn't know a lot about it. I was reading, like most people do these days, link texts saying it was good, and Meryl Streep and The Laundromat and coming to Netflix and Steven Soderbergh. I didn't like it. I got out of it after an hour and a half, and I was like, man, we should have watched another episode of Magnum P.I. instead.
Yeah, I always know it's a bad situation when Dalt starts like checking his phone to see what time it is, and also like on the screen, like flipping up the like pausing it so he can see how much time is left. And I think the first time he did that was about a half hour in, and it was only a 95-minute long movie.
And it felt like it had been more than half an hour.
Yeah.
I was like, is this going to be one of those 2-hour-long, unedited Netflix specials where they just give the director carte blanche because the director's a big name? Is like, oh, we're so impressed you're doing something for us. Do whatever you want.
It's like my next guest needs no introduction. They just let Letterman go crazy and go down to Selma and all that fun stuff.
Somebody should have reined that stuff in.
Right.
Yeah. So what did you think, Coco? I've gone on and on about my opinion, as usual.
So I was like you. I actually didn't know that it was about the Panama Papers, just based on the strength of the cast and the director. I was interested in seeing it.
So you thought it was about an actual laundromat then? Like we were saying at the beginning of the show.
I knew the laundromat was not literal.
Oh, okay.
Although, I mean, that would have been a better movie.
I think so.
I appreciate that they tried to make a very complicated topic like more simplistic, like more understandable for the layperson, because I'm a yoga teacher and I walk dogs. I don't know anything about finance. I don't know anything about shell corporations. Like,
I think you do. I think you're one of those people who's just pretending, but meanwhile there's like a hardened criminal shell inside.
Meanwhile there's like Coco Holdings like down in Panama,
LLC.
you know.
And every time I go to cash a check, it's like, why is there a fraction of a cent off this? It's been rounded down instead of up.
So I appreciated that they did try to make a very complicated subject
me too,
easier to understand. I thought they did a pretty good job of that. There was still some stuff I was like, wait, where do the Chinese people come into this? Like, I didn't really get that whole thing.
Right. I think that had to do with Chinese funding.
Yeah.
That's what I think it had to do.
Yeah,
in order
like
to
briberies
secure,
and stuff.
No, I mean like the production of the movie.
Oh, okay.
In order to
secure
some funding for some financial funding, they had to say, okay, well, put some Chinese people in here, and then we'll get some Chinese support here.
Okay, that's probably
I no evidence to base that conclusion on. I was just thinking the same thing. Is like, this is random. Why are they here doing this? And they're actually talking Mandarin in the movie. Like, why?
And I appreciated that it was 95 minutes long. Although I think I would have...
One of the selling points is it's not 2 hours long.
I think I would have preferred if it had been like 2.5 hours, but an actual documentary. I think that would have been more interesting.
Yeah.
I liked the cast. I don't think any one person actually did like a super duper stellar job.
No.
Like, there's a lot of movies where you're like, well, the movie kind of blew, but oh my God, Meryl Streep was amazing.
Right.
Like, everybody just kind of turned in serviceable performances. Like, I didn't really feel like any of them elevated the material.
Right.
I will say, probably the highlight for me was Jeffrey Wright's character getting busted at the Miami airport, and in addition to being busted for like insurance fraud, also being busted for being a bigamist,
which was completely out of the blue.
Right? Nobody.
Like,
that
there
just
was
came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden he's got 2 families, and we didn't know anything about it before that. And we didn't know anything about it after that.
Right. So that was like a very kind of satisfying conclusion to his storyline, because he was out of there in the first third of the movie.
Right.
Like, he was done. So
it feels like, so to me, a lot of these special Netflix and sometimes Amazon productions bringing in big names, big stars, big producers, big directors, they feel like check cashing opportunities to me. Now, I don't mean
We would like a check cashing opportunity as well, Netflix. So
yes,
please hit us up.
I think we could probably do a story like this.
Well, especially because I said this to you last night during the movie. I'm sorry to interrupt. I felt I do it every day. I'm sorry. I'm a girl. You know, we talk all the time. No. I felt as though the movie had very sort of high school production values.
Yes.
So I think,
in HD.
But in HD.
Like it was the scenery and everything was really good. Everything was in focus, so let's not take it the wrong way, but it just kind of felt like I said, it felt like, okay, let's charge through this. Yeah. Everybody needs to get, Meryl Streep's time is very valuable. Jeffrey Wright's time is very valuable. Let's get them here. Let's get them there. Oh, we'll set his character in Nevis, so he actually will be interested in this movie, and he'll go to Nevis. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's like a paid vacation for Jeffrey Wright.
Right. Yeah. You can tell sometimes there's these pitch meetings, I imagine, with the agents and the actor, and there's like, well, what's his character? Well, it's a regular guy, and he's okay, but where does it take place? It's in Nice, France. Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm in. 2 weeks in France.
You're an insurance fraud guy, but you get to go not to anywhere in America where we normally film movies. Like,
you get to go to somewhere in the Caribbean during winter in North America.
Right, exactly.
But you get to play a polygamist.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
So it was very, it felt like high school kids trying to be avant-garde, like Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas talking to the camera and then walking off the set so you can see the
actual set,
the actual set, and then they
the sound stage and everything.
They grab their jackets off the coat rack and then they walk off, and I'm like, this is just this is like it is like a high school production trying way too hard to be edgy.
It was showing off too. It was like, look how, like you said, look how edgy. I got that same sense too, because. And I don't necessarily mean this like you've got to set every shot up and it's got to be consistent through the movie and everything like that. I'm all about surprising you in a good way, and there were some surprises during this, but it just felt way too forced. It felt way too artificial, and it felt way too like I said, okay, that's good enough for this. We're gonna cash the check in a couple of weeks, so let's move on. And Meryl's got to go here, and Soderbergh's got to go there, and let's try to get this done in a certain amount of time. It just didn't feel like it was fully baked.
Yeah, I totally concur. I definitely would have watched like a 2.5 hour long documentary about this, but it didn't know what it wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, does it want to tell the story of Meryl Streep's character, or does it want to focus on Antonio Banderas and Gary Oldman? Like, does it want to focus on like the African guy who's banging his college daughter's roommate, and then bribing her with bearer shares that are worthless, that are worth like $37 because now he's got another shell company in Cyprus that he funneled on the money. Like, it was just
Further to your point is that I had that exact same reaction too. Is that they were very good at trying to explain this in everyday terms that we could follow along. So the bearer shares and everything else that was involved. It didn't entertain me. It didn't really inform me either. So I think like a documentary would have been the way to go.
Yeah, definitely. And there was something else I was gonna. I will say that the ending of it was really weird. Like, so there was, I read a little bit of controversy.
Who knew that the butler did it? I didn't suspect that at all.
In the study with the candlestick.
Right. Colonel Mustard.
Yeah, Meryl Streep, there was a little bit of controversy because she played two characters. She played her main character, the widow of James Cromwell, but then she...
don't say who she played, the other character.
Well, this kind of ties into the controversy. She played not a white lady, and at the end she comes out and she takes off the wig and she takes off like the padding.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of controversy about her playing not a white lady.
I'm not sure if so that is an understandable controversy, but at the same time, I'm not sure I buy into this in this particular industry. It's like, you're an actor, you should be able to act. Like I don't want Mickey Rooney portraying an Asian guy, right? Like I'm not talking about that, because that was just insulting, and that was of the time, so that doesn't excuse it, but that was just inappropriate. But in certain instances, you should be able to portray something more than just your racial background, your cultural background. Like, that's what acting is. It's all about artificial. It's all about pretending. Like, it's not like you're pretending to be a murderer. It's like, oh, yeah, we only need murderers to portray that role.
Right. Only Hitler relatives can portray Hitler.
Right. Or only Germans, or Austrians, I should say, can portray that. Like, it's a little fudgier than that. I think the controversy is a little bit too cut and dried. Well, I'm not with Scarlett Johansson where she said, she was in the opposite end. I'm sort of in the middle on this, where you should be able to. It's a profession where you pretend.
Well, I didn't think that her pretending to be this other character added anything to it. Like, at the end, she comes out and she takes off the wig and she takes off the padding, and then you realize, oh, it's Meryl Streep, because I actually didn't.
I didn't know.
I didn't realize that before because I wasn't really looking for it.
Yeah, me too. But I was thinking that actor's actually pretty good. She's pretty good at doing what she was doing. I didn't think, oh, that's Meryl Streep.
Yeah, but I was like, so at the end she came out and she did all that, and then she gave this big kind of speech about how we need financial reform and this stuff needs to stop, and it's hurting people and blah blah blah. And I'm like, so why couldn't they have just hired like a different actress to play the second role that she played, and she could just come out as the widow of James Cromwell? Like, I mean, I get the second character that she played,
but they need a reveal moment, right? I mean, that's why they did it.
I don't know. I just that didn't. Even though I was surprised that it was her, even though I knew that there was the controversy about her playing this other character, like, I was surprised it was her, but it didn't blow me away. I wasn't like, whoa, Gary Oldman took his mask off and it was Meryl Streep, like it's Scooby-Doo, like.
It wasn't a Sixth Sense kind of moment.
Right, yeah, totally. Yeah. So I didn't.
And that felt a little bit show-offy too. It was like, oh, I can portray this, so I was this character. You know what I mean? By Meryl Streep saying, oh, that was actually me acting.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of fourth walls being broken down in this one, and intentionally, but it just didn't work. I think that the acting was very good. I think the performances were good. I didn't think it was the sum of its parts.
Yeah, definitely. It didn't know what it wanted to be.
It didn't know what it wanted to be, and there were just too many disparate stories that were trying to be connected. And again, it's like one of those, sometimes you see those movies, like some of the movies in the past, I'm trying to think of The Player. The Player is a good example of a movie where, from the 80s or the 90s, where there's a bunch of scenes stitched together with all these high-profile actors who couldn't get together at the same time.
Right.
So they filmed these segments separately, and then they tried to stitch it together into one movie. This kind of feels like that. It kind of feels like a stitched together version of several independent movies that the actors could only be in those, for 3 days on set or whatever it happens to be. So it's too bad, because there's a real opportunity there, and the talent is there. And Soderbergh, I still like Soderbergh as a director. I think he's great. Ocean's 11 franchise, I think, is I was entertained by it. I mean, how could you go wrong with that cast?
Right, exactly.
But at least that's a very good example of him having a star-studded cast and pulling something together that was cohesive and linear and entertaining, and it made sense from start to finish. Some of the plot points in those movies were a little convoluted, a little complicated.
Because of the nature of the beast.
Because it's a heist movie, right? So it's going to be, eventually you're going to be like, what is he doing right there? And what's in the bag? Like,
what's in the box?
What's in that box? No, that's a different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I thought it was a valiant attempt. Let's chalk that up as a valiant attempt to
educate while entertaining.
Educate and entertain about a very complicated and important subject. Like, the Panama Papers are a big deal.
And it said at the end, too, that the guys that Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas portrayed only spent a few months in prison.
Yeah.
So...
And ruining all these lives.
Yeah, for ruining all these lives and causing, a lot of upheaval to the financial system. Like, how many... Like, the Queen doesn't... She's got a lot of money in offshore accounts. That came out in the Panama Papers. So if the Queen's not paying tax and it's austerity season in the UK, and who knows how much worse it's going to be thanks to Brexit, well, there we go. It's all interconnected. So.
And that's a topic for another podcast, I'm sure.
Please go back and listen to our podcast when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had their baby. Speaking of the British royal family.
And we came up with alternative names for the young progeny. And some of them were classics. I bet you after that podcast, if you checked birth records, you'd see some of the names that we suggested show up in birth records.
Cornwall Vegemite.
Cornwall Vegemite.
How can you go wrong with that?
So Cornwall, if you're out there listening, you have us to thank for your name.
And on that note,
do
you have anything else to add about the Laundromat?
No, I'd say if it was a thumbs up, thumbs down, 1 to 10, A to F, I would say don't watch it.
Okay. I'd give it...
How many Cocoa Paws would you give it?
I'd give it in the C- D+ range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't go see it in the theater because there was theatrical release for it in order to qualify for the Olympics. The Olympics? Yes.
That's how little Daltz cared for this movie. He doesn't even know what it's competing for. And his face is now really red.
I think it's like the shot put.
I don't think anybody's going to get nominated for this.
I don't think so either. I think this is gonna. I think they're gonna put Netflix is gonna put all their money into The Irishman.
Yeah, The Irishman. Yeah.
I think that's
which is getting fantastic reviews.
Right, and as soon as it shows up on Netflix, we're gonna watch it.
Yeah,
we're gonna binge watch it, and it's only like about 8 hours long. So we'll have a podcast right after that.
I know you're looking forward to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese.
Well, and on that note, we hope you enjoyed our podcast, giving the business to the Laundromat, and we're hoping for actually a new movie to come out about an actual laundromat where people come and go.
Netflix, hit us up.
It feels like a very 70s Norman Lear kind of TV show, actually. The Laundromat, and people come in and there's a catchphrase like "Dynamite" or what you talking about, and there's all these opportunities, I think, for a good show. And we could film it here in our small town in Connecticut because there's many laundromats here. I think actually there's probably disproportionately a number of laundromats compared to the wealth of the town.
We'll have to check that out.
We'll have to do some research and we'll get back to you on that.
So for another week, I'm not Daltz.
And I'm not Coco.